welcome to this edition of Your County Government. My name is Greg Moore, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's program. Today we're talking about the County Board, budget, and policy. And with me today we have Colleen Bates, currently the first Vice Chair. I should say that at this time of recording, I serve as the County Board Chair. Colleen Bates, first Vice Chair. Stella Pagonis is the Chair of the Finance and Budget Committee, and also Kathryn Schauf, our County Administrator here in Eau Claire County. So welcome. Colleen, why don't we start with you? You're the veteran County Board Supervisor. How long have you been on the board now?
Probably longer than the law should allow.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Actually, this is my 33rd year.
33rd year, fantastic. And you've been in a variety of leadership positions. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about what the role of the County Board is, in not only in Eau Claire County, but in all counties?
Well, county boards throughout the state are really an arm of the state of Wisconsin. Much of what we do is actually mandated by the state. However, we have a lot of connections and leverage on a local level that allows us to develop policy, to create the budget that makes the things that we must actually do possible. And we also are connected with courts, human services, and a lot of the parts of government that are complicated and sometimes rather difficult to manage.
Well, great. And it's, as the viewers probably know, the counties have three branches of government, similar to the federal government and the state government. The judicial, which are our circuit courts, the legislative, which is the policy-making body, the county board, and the executive, and Kathryn, of course, is the county administrator. But unlike voting for the president or electing the governor, the county board or the county administrator serves at the pleasure of the county board and is an appointee of the county board. Colleen, you had mentioned budget, and that's generally considered the major policy document that any county board adopts each year. And Stella, why don't you tell us what goes into creating a budget and figuring out how to set priorities and so on?
Well, the budget process is really a 4-month-long process. It starts about in July, culminates with a vote by the county board in November. So in July and early August, the head of each department meets with the county administrator and the finance director to put together what they hope to be the budget for the coming year, the next year. Starting in August and through September, the head of each department then meets with the Committee on Finance and Budget. And the advantage the committee has is that we get to see everyone's budget, and we are able to view the county in a more, let's say, holistic or global fashion, so we could see how the different departments could work together, rely on each other. And so then a proposed budget book is put together that currently it's just done by department in an alphabetical fashion. It works very well, and that's what goes to the county board for deliberation. So it's a long process, but we are a performance management county, which means that each department needs to report on their successes and their accomplishments for the year in a way to justify how the funds are being spent.
Why don't you explain just briefly on the opportunities that the public has to have input to the budget process?
Well, the public actually has quite a bit of opportunity. In addition to attending any meeting, all of our meetings are open meetings, and so any member of the public could attend any of the meetings, either with finance and budget or with the county board. There are days of input. But in addition to that, the county has put out a survey every year that is actually structured currently by department, where individuals could take the survey and rank each program based on their perception of level of importance. So, and we take those surveys very seriously. I read all the comments, and I take them seriously. I think that people have many really positive things to say. We get a lot of encouragement as well from the public to start collaborating with other branches of government. And there are many instances of collaboration, and there are collaborations that I think we can continue to do in the future. And by other branches of government, I mean city government or school districts or other townships.
Great, thanks. And Kathryn is the county administrator and overseeing operation. I know stewardship is an important principle of managing our resources, managing our funds. You want to speak a little bit about that? And
Yes, I
how it
will.
relates to the budget too?
Stewardship, from the standpoint of the county managing resources, is extremely important. And as Finance Chair Pagonis noted, the budget itself balances the taxpayer's ability to pay against the need for service in a whole host of different areas, because the county not only provides basic infrastructure that most people are familiar with in terms of roadways, but we also provide significant resources for the development of human capital and social capital. And so all of those needs are balanced as the board deliberates the budget and where they're going to take their limited assets and spend them to develop community overall. And so that process really is the most significant work that the board does in a given year. And the inputs to that are from the citizens, they're from the board as a whole through their strategic plan, they're from the employees of Eau Claire County. It is a very robust and interactive process. And it really does embody that concept of stewardship as you were asking about, because it's how we use the scarce resources we have to do what's needed.
I'd like to talk a little
sure.
bit about that as well. Those collaborations that are being developed in a lot of different departments also leverage, in many cases, other resources. So by having a relationship with departments that have access to grants, or even other agencies, nonprofits, City of Eau Claire, even the school board, we leverage resources that come from outside our own ability to be able to fund with others to make a collaborative approach to solving a community problem.
Right. And in particular, there are numerous community agencies that the county provides fairly modest grants, but it allows them, the community agencies, to write additional grants and leverage the funds that the county provides. For example, the homeless shelters, we're very supportive of the homeless shelters, and other programs in the community.
Well, community need is certainly what brings that about.
Right.
I would agree. And just to kind of tie that all together, it really is about partnership. And the county, even though it's not always readily apparent, is a key player in developing community for Eau Claire and Eau Claire County.
And you mentioned resources earlier. What are the main funding streams, sources of revenue that fund county services?
Well, there are several. Given that the county is an arm of the state government, we get considerable state funding, in particular for human services and for highway. In addition, there's some federal funding through the Older Americans Act and through the nutrition program. And then, of course, there's the property tax. And that has been set. That's set by state statute. And then another revenue stream that we have is the sales tax. We have 0.5% of sales tax that we're able to derive, and we use that to essentially set against the property tax, and it lowers our property tax bills.
And the other thing that comes hand in glove with that is that many of our funding streams are not necessarily certain. Even our state revenues and federal revenues over the years certainly have not necessarily been adequate to meet the need. And it's part of the good news is it's encouraged us to do a lot more innovation in regard to the services that we provide. It also has allowed us to perhaps create those collaborations that still allows services to be provided. So I think that we have, as a county, certainly have tried hard to be sure that we, in spite of restrictions on many levels, that I suspect will continue for quite some time, I think we still do a very good job of providing our citizens with the services they need.
Right, I hope so.
You mentioned performance management. We talked about that and priorities and being innovative and making best use of the limited funding that we have. And Stella, you talked about performance management. Can you, maybe Kathryn, I'll go to you. Can you just explain a little bit about what you expect from department heads concerning performance management and what that means?
Well, performance management is actually a wonderful tool because not only does it provide a way for managers to actually manage their processes and look at the efficiencies of their processes and to look at the outcomes. What is it that we're really getting for the money that we spend? So they can use that in making decisions, meaning the department heads can use that in making decisions on their management of their operation. It also provides input to the various committees of the board, which are actually the workhorses of the board. They do that significant work for the Board of Supervisors. And those performance measures give them the information they need so they know when they need to make policy shifts or policy changes that will change the direction and allow for even greater service. And ultimately, it provides information to the taxpayer and the constituency that we're doing our best with the resources that they've entrusted to us to accomplish what it is they desire in terms of service. And again, the budget pulls all of that together in one significant document on a yearly basis.
Which is available on the website. Anyone can go and look at the proposed budget, the county administrator's recommendation, the proposed budget, and then the final budget.
Yes.
That sounds great. And I know you mentioned it earlier, but I'll just clarify. So, right, so the different oversight committees review budgets, they have input, the administrator proposes a budget, finance and budget makes whatever changes to that proposed budget, and what comes from finance and budget is the document that comes in November to the county board and is the starting point for the board to add or delete or amend in any possible way. So,
Correct.
yeah. Speaking of committee, we just have a little bit of time, but speaking of how the county board does its business, as noted, there's a wide range of services the counties provide, and and they're relatively large boards, but I believe it really works quite well. So we have 29 supervisors here in Eau Claire, and most of the work is done at the committee level. So I don't do all the talking. Why don't I turn over to you, Colleen? Why don't you just talk briefly about committee structure, how it works, and how many folks are normally on a standing committee?
As the board goes through reorganization, committees are formed. And the individuals on the board sort of list their preferences and say, you know, what do I feel I'm good at? What would I like to be involved in? What do I bring to the board? In the process of committee selection, after that's been done, then the committee itself chooses its leadership.
And this is every 2 years,
Every
April
two years.
Even-numbered years.
Ordinarily, most of our committees meet at least once a month. In some cases, like the budget committee, they're likely to meet more often, especially when they're in the season of the budget. But it's an oversight responsibility, and not just to look at the financial end of it, but to look at the success and measure the success of programming. Hopefully in that process, if indeed we ever came to a point that you had trouble to be able to determine what was going to have to go, you would look at the prioritization of your programs and potentially look at programs that you are not as successful in before you begin cutting rates straight across the board and impact really successful programs. So I think all of our committees have that responsibility.
Great, thanks. We're about out of time, but did you want to add something real quick there,
Well,
Stella?
I just wanted to point out that the oversight committees actually have significant responsibility, and some oversight committees, for example, planning and development, conduct hearings.
Right.
So, and individuals, members of the public, come to these hearings and talk about zoning and talk about conditional use. And it's actually very fascinating to hear what the members of the community are planning and working on.
Great. Okay, well, that's our time for today. I want to thank once again Colleen Bates, Stella Pagonis, and Kathryn Schauf for joining us today, talking about County Board Budget and Policy. Thank you for joining us today.
The mission of the Eau Claire County Board is to provide quality and responsive services and programs aimed at protecting the public safety, health, and economic security of our residents in a cost-effective manner through innovation and leadership. Your county government is produced through the facilities of Chippewa Valley Community Television in cooperation with the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors. For more information about the Eau Claire County Board and how they aim to help the residents of Eau Claire County, go to www.co.eau-claire.wi.us.